we talked about, even I did not give the country presentation, but every time that I tried to speak, I was talking in the context of Bangladesh. And I did talk about the judiciary. We all talked about the parliament, the election commission, and all other state institutions that we have been talking about, which deals with the human rights issues. But I would like to give you an idea of the current status of Bangladesh, but from a very different perspective, because I am actively involved in politics. I'm comparatively a younger politician in Bangladesh, and the way the younger generation look at the things today. And I will try to give that perspective, which may be a little different from what we have been discussing in the last one day. If I have to tell you my situation, I was born in a political family, correct? But I was not sure that I would be getting active in politics in such an early age. I was only 29 when I got actively involved in politics. And I've got two different phases in my life. One, I have to say that I'm a very, very fortunate young politician. On the other hand, I'm also a very unfortunate one, because I could survive only 3 years in the mainstream politics, and I quit. And I started an alternative political party in the country. The reason I call myself unfortunate is because for me, when I first joined in politics back in the 2001, I was very young. I was just 29 years old when I first became an MP. I was the youngest member of parliament in Bangladesh. And my idea was, I thought that my job, the primary job, would be to go to the younger people in the country and tell them to come and join politics, to attract them into politics, so that we can get some fresh minds, some new thinking, new ideas into the politics. We need some fresh blood coming into the politics. And that was the whole idea. But what happened now, after 15 years of active politics, when I go to the younger people and I tell them that, the young people should come and join, it is the new minds, the new fresh people should come and join, the first thing they ask me, you have been in politics for the last 15 years. What have you achieved? Where have you gone? And what could you do? What change could you bring? And I actually don't have an answer to that. But yes, I'm a politician, so I can always twist it and give an answer, and I do say that. And I tell them what I believe, that, it's not that we have achieved something yet, but what we have done, we have planted seed. We are planting seeds. So one day it'll take roots. We have to start at some point, and that's why the younger people should come. I'm fortunate because just in 10 years of active politics, I am not confined in one constituency. I have my access to throughout the country with my organizations, with my social networking, and wherever I go in the country, not just in my constituency, any places I go, even when I go abroad and meet the NRBs, the non-resident Bangladeshis, I see the younger people come to me and share their frustrations as well. And so I'm fortunate in that way, that in a very, just in the 10, 15 years time, I have established an access to the younger generation of the country, throughout the country, as a matter of fact. So that's the fortunate part. When I see the younger people, Bangladesh scenario is a little different. I don't know, I can't compare it with India or Pakistan and the other parts. In Bangladesh, it's more than 70% of the total population is below the age of 30. I mean, this is an amazing, we haven't had that kind of situation before. More than 80% are actually below the age of 45. It's a very, very young country. A lot of young people are there. So when we say that we have a hopeless younger generation, we're actually talking about 80% of the people of the country have become hopeless. They don't have any hope about the political system and stuff. And as a result, what actually happened in Bangladesh's education system, when I was going to the high schools, I have seen, now the system has changed a little bit. We used to declare a merit list every year, those who graduated from the high school. The top 50s would have been published in daily newspapers, the top 50 students. We have done a study a couple of years ago that since 1990, when the the journey towards democracy started in Bangladesh after the fall of the military rule. In the last 24 years, if you see the top 50 students of every year, so talking about 1,500 to 2,000 students, the top best students, 90% of them have already left the country. They're not in the country anymore. So that's the process of brain drain that's been taking place in the last 25 years in the country. Is going to affect us in the future very bad, because we don't have the meritorious people, those who can actually contribute in the process of nation building. They've started leaving the country, and the process still continues. You go in the city of Dhaka, the capital city, if you go early in the morning in front of the the US Embassy or the British High Commission, you see the long queue of young boys and girls, educated boys and girls, standing there and applying for a visa to get out of the country. That's the only thing. That's the only goal they have. They just want to leave the country and build their own future somewhere else. So that is going to affect us tremendously in the future. This is what I feel. In politics, what happened when I first came and joined in, the change has become a very common word in the politics of Bangladesh. Everybody is talking about change. And when we say change, people actually think of only one thing, that is the change of the governments. So there are two major political parties in the country in the last 25 years. We have seen the Nationalist Party and the Bangladesh Awami League. First time in 1990 when the democracy started was the Nationalist Party who came in power. They were in power for 5 years. And then 96, then they were thrown out of power because people want to change. So Awami League came in power. For 5 years, 2001, again, people want to change, people not satisfied. They were thrown out of power, BNP came back to power. And then in 2009, again, BNP was out and Awami League came in. So people are changing between these two parties every 5 years. This is for the first time back in 5th of January 2014, when there was an election which was a non-inclusive election, so Awami League actually came back to power for the second term in a row, because BNP did not take part in the election. So, and people also did not take part in the election, which we have mentioned yesterday. Less than 10% voters actually came in and voted. So when we started our politics and alternative politics back in the 2004, 2005, and we started talking about change. And people get confused. When you say change, it's who want change. If you ask 100 people, everybody say we want change. 100% will say we want change. But when you say what change do you want, 100 will have 100 different answers to it. We don't have a single point answer or a consensus that what change is actually required in a country. When you say change, some people think that it is the education system that needs to be changed. Some people think it is the judiciary that needs to be changed. Some people think it is the election commission that needs to be changed. Some people say corruption is number one issue, so something has to be done. So we have different answers. So we could not create a consensus among the younger generation that when we say change, what do we actually mean? What do we actually need? And that was not communicated properly because we ourselves don't have the answer as political leaders. If you look into the history of Bangladesh, starting from 1952, if we say, after 1947 when Bangladesh was first East Pakistan, and just in 5 years' time, 1952, the youth of Bangladesh demanded one single thing, that we want the language movement, that we want our mother tongue, Bengali, to be the official state language of Bangladesh, of East Pakistan. That was the movement. So the answer was very clear. What do you want? We want the mother tongue. We want the language. So, people actually knew. It was communicated properly. So that was achieved. 20 years later, in 1971, the youth again rose, and there was one single demand. What do you want? We said we want independence. We want an independent country. So the demand was met. 20 years from then, 1991, the youth again organized themselves. And you asked them, what do you want? They said, we want democracy. So one single point was still there. So in this cycle of 20 years, a paradigm shift took place in Bangladesh, starting from 52. And every time in these major movements in 52, 20 years later, 71, 20 years later, 91, we have seen the younger generation actually took the leadership. We did not have just a political leadership front to them. They organized the movements, and it was communicated properly to them that what they actually want, they knew it, what they want. and they achieved it. And every movement was, they first started it peacefully, but then later violence was imposed on them, so automatically the entire movement became violent in 52, in 71, in 1990. If you look into that 20 years a cycle, since 1991, we have actually crossed another 20 years. So a time for change is actually now, by looking at the history of Bangladesh in that 20-year cycle. From 2012 to 2011, that 20 years have passed, and we have now into 25 years, 26 years going on. And the system has totally fallen apart. Bangladesh is probably going through the toughest time, the most difficult time in the history of our country. We are losing, right now we don't have democracy at all. We have an elected government, but the election where only 5% people took place. We have a parliament where we don't have an opposition. We have an opposition party officially, but that opposition is also part of the government because there are like 4 or 5 ministers was taken from the opposition party because the main opposition, which is BNP, is outside the parliament. And every day we are losing people. Every day abduction is taking place. The opposition activists, especially the student activists, and I have a list of it. When I was coming, I met at least 60, 70 of the families myself. And when I was telling them that I'm coming to a human rights conference, they requested me that I should at least give this paper to you for your reference. And I have a list of 366 young boys and girls, those who have been missing in the last 1.5 years. The students, the youth, the political activists are dying every day, and nobody is talking about it. Because Bangladesh has so many other problems, and you can't just talk about one issue every day, because their poverty is an issue, communication is an issue, electricity is another issue. You just can't talk about one thing every day. So in this situation, what can be done, if you ask me? I was listening to everybody speaking yesterday, and I agree with Mr. Hamid Naik, Farouk Bhai, that showed his frustration that when I asked the question to Iran about the literacy rate in Sri Lanka, that because we were hoping that let's focus on education. If we can actually improve the literacy rate, something will change one day. But what I heard yesterday, that it may not be the same case. You can have a high literacy rate, still things may not change. I think what we need right now to address the human rights issues as a political leader, what I can say, that we have the political parliamentarians here to introduce new bills into the parliament, correct? The human rights organizations are there, the activists are there, the NGOs, the non-government organizations are there. They will work and they will create pressure on the government. All these things are there. But one thing is missing, what I could feel, that there is no process by which we can start influencing on the youth of the people, of the mass. We have to get the mass, the people involved in the process. Otherwise, nothing is going to work. It is the people who is going to bring the change in the end of the day. The civil society can highlight things, can focus on things, can address things in a different way. The political leadership will try to do, but we have agreed that political leadership probably will not allow a major change to take place in the country, because they don't want change to take place, then they lose their leadership. So it is the people who have become hopeless. We have to give them hope. We have to mobilize them, and we have to bring them out in the street. If I have to give you an example, about 6 months ago, Ashraf Bhai, just correct me if I'm wrong, 6 months ago, 7 people in Naranganj, a city right beside Dhaka, got missing. One of them was an elected panel mayor of that city. Another one was a very high senior lawyer of the local judiciary, Bar Association. What was his name? Was Chandan Kumar Saha, and the panel mayor was Mr. Nazrul. And so 7 of them were picked up by the Rapid Action Battalion, which is the so-called elite force created, who had the license to kill. And they were picked up by them, and they were missing, and nobody actually knew where they were. But the lawyers took it very seriously. They communicated with the people got involved, and they demanded an immediate release. But how can you have an immediate release? Because the RAB don't even accept that they have picked up someone. The police don't accept they have picked up someone. The detective branch, they don't accept that they have picked up someone. And even the Prime Minister went to the Parliament, so I think they went to the court, and they wanted the court to get involved because there was a lawyer who was missing. So court was actually giving some sort of a direction to RAB and the government. And the Prime Minister in the Parliament threatened the court that do not create confusion in the country. No government agency has picked them up, so this is not right. This is a false allegation, and court should not intervene. The Prime Minister in the Parliament, including the Minister of Law and the other senior officials of the government, in the Parliament threatened the court of not getting involved. Finally, the lawyers communicated with the people. Hundreds and thousands of people actually came out in the street. They gathered in the street. They blockaded the road, which is not a very disciplined way of doing things, but this has actually worked. When they actually came out on the street, for 3 days in a row, they did not leave the road. They said, we want our people back. We want our boys back. Otherwise, we're not going to go back home. And then media got involved, and only after a week after this, the movement took place, they found the dead bodies in the rivers. All 7 of them were killed. One of them, I think, came up with, one of the witness actually came up, and they said that it was the Rapid Action Battalion who picked them up. And because of this tremendous pressure from the government had to arrest the Rapid Action Battalion officers. And before I was coming here, they have also, I think the police force, those who were involved, those who were alleged, they went to the court and they have given a
the confession.
They have given a confession that yes, they actually did that, and there was 6 crore taka was there was a transaction of almost $1 million to kill these people, and so so the point that I'm trying to make here, it only worked when people got involved. So we, as politicians, as parliamentarians, I think, beside introducing bills in the parliament and making new laws, I think we have to communicate to the people. We have to get the people involved. We have to bring the people out on the street. That is the only solution to the problem. So for a country like Bangladesh, if we don't organize the mass people, if we cannot organize a mass uprising, of course in a peaceful manner, in a non-violent manner, I don't think anything is going to change in the country. We can talk about just the judiciary, what reforms we can bring. We can talk about how the election commission can function. We can talk about how we can make the parliament more effective. But nothing is going to work until it is backed by the people of the country. It is backed by the younger generation of the country. So we need to do that, and we want to do that. And there, I think, when something like this happens, when a movement takes place, we need international support. We need international intervention, international focus, so that we can actually make the younger generation hopeful of having a brighter future in the country. I think that's about it. It's just a different perspective I would like to give, that, I do appreciate the human rights organizations, what they've been doing. They've been doing a great job. I do appreciate all the political leaders. There are a lot of good people are there. A lot of good politicians are there. And they have been also trying. But what I think is missing is social organization, social movement, not just human rights activists or the NGOs, basically totally a social organization to mobilize the younger generation, get them out in the street, make demands, create movements, and get things done. I think that we have to think of some sort of a process to get the younger people involved in the process and take them into the street, and in a very conventional way, we actually have to get our job done. Thank you very much.